Hello, my name is Dan Stewart, and today we're going to be talking about CSS Selectors. What the? Every symbol that you see on this slide can be used to select an element on a web page. Some of you might notice some that you're familiar with, like the hash symbol for selecting by ID or the dot by class, but what are all these other symbols for? We're going to talk about it. First off, I have to thank Smashing CSS, Professional Techniques for Modern Layout by Eric Meyer. If you don't know who Eric Meyer is, you don't know what CSS is. I definitely recommend that you pick this book up. It's really good. So we're talking selectors. They can be used to select an element. Well, what's an element? An element is like a header on a web page. Maybe you've seen the big letters at the top, and maybe they're a different color or a different font. Those can be selected. That's a real life element. But there's also pseudo elements. So these aren't real elements. If you've ever put your mouse over a link and you've seen it change color, that's the hover state of that link, and you can select that hover and apply a style to it. Different color or bolder font, anything that you want. So selecting by an element name is easy. You just use the name. Selecting by the ID attribute inside of that element, you use the hash, and class is a dot. But then there's all these other symbols. Let's talk about them. In order to understand selection, you've got to understand specificity. That's a hard word. I've practiced it many times. It really comes down to who's going to win. So, I've got some Chuck Ipsum I got from the Chuck Ipsum generator. And in the HTML, you'll see that I have a header1 tag, and it has an ID of title. Right? Now I've got two CSS rules. The first one says that all header1s should be red. But the second one says that header1s with the ID of title, that's that hash title, should be green. So who's going to win? What do you think? Is the text going to be red or green? Specificity. It's green. Right? Why? Well, maybe it can best be explained by using these numbers and commas, and maybe that can kind of help you visualize it. That first column, the first zero that you see, that's for an inline style. So if inside the tag you put a style attribute and you put some values in that style, that's going to trump everything else. The second column is by ID. So here I have a rule that says the header1 tag with the ID of title, that's going to be that 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, right? The third column, that's for classes and pseudo classes. And then the fourth column is for the element. So I have an element rule that says h1 should be red, but it has a much lower specificity than the title ID. Right? I don't know if that helps. Let's try another one. So I have a paragraph, and inside of the paragraph is a span, and inside of the span is an italic tag. So you can see the specificity goes up. A paragraph rule has 0001, and then paragraph with a span is 2, and paragraph span italic is 3. So paragraph span italic has a greater specificity than just the paragraph, and that's why it turns blue. Right? But this sort of child selection thing, I don't like it, and I'm not alone. David Hyatt, architect for Safari, WebKit, also worked on Mozilla, he said flat out that decorating your markup with classes and IDs and just matching on those instead of this whole sibling, descendant, child selectors is going to help your page perform significantly better. It's also going to help with complexity. I think this kind of code was born out of the fear of classitis. I remember reading lots of articles about classitis and the dangers of putting class in every little element and every little tag. And I mean, I kind of understand where they're coming from, but these nested selectors have been much more painful to deal with than just lots of little class tags everywhere. And specificity doesn't mean they wipe each other out. They can build on each other. So you could make a rule that says header 1 should be bold, and header 1s with an ID of title should be a larger font. And then you could have a green class that just makes things green. And you can apply all three of those to a header 1 tag. They don't wipe each other out as long as they don't conflict with each other. You do have a trump card, and I hate to even bring this up, but sometimes it's important to apply an important to a tag, right? But I'd really caution you against using it. It basically breaks specificity, and when you break something, it's kind of hard to understand. I'd listen to James Podolsky. It's a massive pain. Alright, we talked about selecting an element by its name, or by its ID with the hash symbol, or by its class with a dot. And you're not limited to just one class. Before I talk about classes, I'd really caution you against using ID as a selector. I can't tell you how many times I've selected by ID only to find out that my IDs were being changed dynamically by whatever code I'm using. Or I was promised that I would only ever have one of these elements on the page, so I used an ID. Come to find out, there's two of them. So it's just not good to select by ID if you can help it. Use class, and you're not stuck with just one class. You can use multiple classes. You just separate them with a space. So you could have a rule for red and a rule for italic, and you can apply both of them to the same span element. The star, some people call it an asterisk, but I like to say star. It's a universal selector. Now you'd think that you could get away with H star, and that would be H1, H2, H3, all the H tags. But that's not how it works. What it's used for is to select all of the elements inside of a selector. So I have a rule that says a paragraph should be red. All the elements inside of a paragraph should be red, right? So P star means select a paragraph and then select every element inside that paragraph and add a red font color to it. So we have italics are red, bold is red, and even a link is red. Any element we put in this paragraph is going to turn red thanks to the universal selector. Attribute selection is very handy. So we have a link. It has an href attribute, which means it's going to go somewhere. So let's add this little Wikipedia style external link icon, right? But if you look closely at this code, I have one external link and I have one internal link, and only the external link should have that icon. So how can we select just the external link? We can add some criteria to the attribute selection. So if you know for sure 100% that the value of the attribute href will never change, then this is the way to go. But just capitalizing the G in great is going to break it. Putting a slash at the end is going to break it. Maybe a better way is to use the universal selector wildcard again. So you'd think that you could do HTTP star, and then it would kind of act as a wildcard and select anything after that or in between. But that's not how it works. You need to use star equals. And it takes the value that you put in there, HTTP, and it looks through the entire attribute to see if that HTTP letters are anywhere in there. And if it is, it's a match, and so you get the icon. Since we know that the beginning of the attribute is HTTP, we can use the caret equals. So caret would be for beginning, and the opposite of caret would be dollar. So dollar would be at the end. Caret at the beginning, dollar at the end. Let's talk about the children. There's a couple of different ways of selecting children. You could do it just with a space. So div space li means take a look at the div tag and look for any list items that occur inside of that. The greater than symbol means a direct descendant. And the list item is not a direct descendant of div. Even though it's contained inside of a div, its direct parent is that ordered list tag, the OL tag. So trying to select on a list item with the greater than symbol using a div isn't going to work. So the font's going to be red. If you'd like to select just the immediate child, that first selection after an element, then you can use the plus symbol. So here I have a paragraph followed by 2 ordered lists. I only want the first one, so I would use the plus symbol just to get that first ordered list. The tilde is a CSS3 thing. I'm still a little unclear on that. It's not supported widely in all browsers correctly, so you can do a little research and find out if this works for you. It is available. Pseudo selectors are selected by that colon. In CS 2.1 we had a few. Hover definitely was a very popular one. CSS 2.1 pseudo elements came out, but then in pseudo CSS 3 we had a lot of new ones, and these I think are really useful. Let's talk about it. Here I have a table of data, and I'd like every odd row to have a gray background, white font. You know, that's pretty common. You can use a pseudo selector, the nth child pseudo selector, and pass in odd, and that's going to make every odd row, and then all the children are the cells, so I put a space TD there, and then each cell is going to have a background color of gray and a font color of white. So that's an example of a pseudo selector. If you look at the HTML, you're not going to see an nth child element, but yet we can still select it. It's great. Definitely contact me about this. I'd love to talk with you about it. StuShack.com is my website. Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, any one of those is good. I'm going to be posting these slides on the SlideShare, and I'll put a link to those in the YouTube comments. Thank you very much for your time.